Hey everyone, and welcome back for another deep dive. This time, we're going to be looking at something pretty mind-blowing. The future of human values. It's a little like trying to predict the future.
Yeah.
But instead of vague, prophecies, we're
Mm,
actually working with some solid predictions
right.
based on tech, environmental shifts, and how our social norms are changing.
And what's really interesting here is, these changes aren't happening separately.
Right.
They all connect and influence each other, kind of like a domino effect, you know?
Yeah,
One change can set off a whole chain reaction leading to outcomes we can't even imagine right now.
totally. And I get this. We might be looking at a future where, families share a continuous mental connection.
Yeah.
Can you imagine that?
That's amazing to think about.
Or a world where your digital self actually has legal rights. Get ready, everyone, because we're going deep on this one.
Definitely. So, to start, let's talk about consciousness and identity. You know how brain-computer interfaces, those BCIs,
Ah.
seem like something out of science fiction? Well, they're becoming a reality way faster than you might think.
Okay, I'm already getting chills. So what happens when we can literally connect our minds?
Well, imagine like a family choosing to join some kind of neural network.
Right.
They could share thoughts and feelings instantly, like in real time.
Wow.
Think about it. No more misunderstandings, no more arguments caused by, miscommunication.
Yeah.
We'd see empathy on a whole new level.
That's pretty intense. But wouldn't that, blur the lines between people? What happens to individuality in a world of constant we?
Yeah, that's the big question.
Yeah.
And things get even crazier when you bring AI into the mix. What if your digital persona, that online version of you, becomes so advanced it gains legal rights?
Whoa.
Like it could vote, own property, even influence laws?
Okay, my mind is officially blown. It's like our digital footprint becomes like a sentient being with its own goals.
Yeah.
It's a whole new definition of identity.
Exactly. And it makes us rethink everything we thought we knew about what it means to be a person, especially in a world where identity is so fluid. But this redefinition isn't just about our individual selves, it changes how we see love and relationships too.
Right. Some of this research is saying that AI companions could actually meet our emotional needs,
Hmm.
maybe even romantic ones.
Yeah.
Is this the end of marriage as we know it?
I mean, think about it. What if you could have an AI partner who was like totally designed for you?
Yep.
Someone who gets your humor, knows how to support you, and never starts those annoying arguments couples have.
It's like having a partner who's perfectly compatible.
Right.
But wouldn't that make human relationships seem, I don't know, even more messy and difficult?
Yeah, it's possible traditional relationships might become less appealing.
Yeah.
We could see more fluid partnerships, maybe even like polyamory becoming normal.
Hmm.
And the legal system would have to adapt to recognize all these different kinds of unions, including those with AI.
So family structures could become incredibly diverse, and love and commitment would take on totally new meanings. It makes you wonder, how would this affect our responsibility to each other? But hold on, we can't forget about the more practical things here.
Right.
We're dealing with climate change, and resources are getting scarce.
Absolutely. And that leads us to a potential shift from ownership to access. Like, imagine a world where you don't own anything,
Whoa.
but you subscribe to services that give you everything you need.
Okay, that's a big change. What would happen to, my house?
Well, think of it this way. Instead of a mortgage, you'd have like a subscription for your living space.
Okay.
It's always furnished and adaptable, and you never have to worry about repairs or renovations.
So it's like the ultimate minimalist lifestyle.
Exactly.
But wouldn't we lose that feeling of, belonging, being attached to our things?
That's where community-owned stuff comes in. Imagine neighborhoods sharing tools, cars, even gardens and workspaces,
Hmm.
all based on who needs what.
Right?
It prioritizes access and sustainability.
So instead of valuing individual wealth, we'd focus on experiences and community.
Yeah.
It really changes the whole definition of success.
Absolutely. And this shift in values could even impact something as unexpected as psychedelics.
Wait, psychedelics? You mean like making magic mushrooms mainstream?
Exactly. Research into the therapeutic potential of psychedelics is exploding right now.
Yeah.
Imagine going to a clinic where they use MDMA to help people process trauma.
Okay.
Think about a war vet dealing with PTSD. They could use MDMA in a safe setting to revisit those traumatic memories and finally heal.
It's amazing to think that these substances that have been, demonized for so long could become valuable tools for mental health.
Right.
But it doesn't stop there, right? I've heard something about, Psychedelic cafes.
It's definitely a possibility. Imagine like government-regulated places where you can safely explore altered states of consciousness.
Okay.
Maybe for creative inspiration, spiritual exploration, or just to connect with people on a deeper level.
This is definitely pushing the boundaries of what we consider normal.
Definitely.
But with all this talk of mind-altering experiences, like, where does reality even fit in?
Well, that's where augmented and virtual reality come into play. As this tech becomes more immersive, they could like blur the lines between the digital and physical worlds.
Right. I was reading about those virtual workspaces where, like, architects can collaborate in real time from all over the world.
Yeah,
They each experience the environment based on their preferences. And then there's those augmented spaces for social events where everyone can personalize what they experience.
exactly. Imagine going to a concert virtually and being able to customize everything, the atmosphere, the crowd, even the music. It's like you have ultimate control over your own reality.
It's pretty amazing,
Yeah.
but also a little unsettling. What happens to, like, our shared reality when we can each customize our experiences? How do we even know what's real anymore?
That's a great question. As we gain more control over how we see the world, values like truth and authenticity will probably take on new meanings. We might even see new social norms developing around, like being present and communicating with each other.
This is just the beginning,
Oh,
right?
yeah, yeah, yeah.
I'm already feeling a little overwhelmed, but in a good way. There's so much more to explore here.
Definitely. In the next segment, we'll dive into even more radical possibilities. We'll be talking about merging with tech, expanding our moral circle to all sentient beings, and totally revolutionizing how we relate to energy and education. So buckle up, because it's about to get even wilder.
Welcome back, everyone. We're about to get into how humanity could merge with technology, even create synthetic life forms. It's a future where, the lines between biology and tech get, well, pretty blurry.
Okay, I'm all ears.
Yeah.
So this merging with tech thing, does it have anything to do with those like gene editing breakthroughs I keep hearing about?
Yeah, exactly. Advancements like CRISPR are leading the way. Imagine a world where parents could actually pick specific genes, specific traits for their kids. Whoa, that's pretty intense. We were talking designer babies, right?
Mm-hmm.
Wouldn't that, like, bring up some serious ethical problems?
For sure. We'd have to ask ourselves some really tough questions, like should we enhance intelligence, physical abilities, even lifespan through genetic changes? What happens to equality if only some people can get these enhancements?
It's almost like a sci-fi movie coming true, but with real consequences.
Yeah.
We could end up in a society where those who are genetically enhanced are seen as, I don't know, superior, and that just widens the gap between the haves and have-nots.
And it gets even more complicated when you think about creating totally new life forms.
Mm.
Synthetic biology could let us design organisms for specific jobs, like cleaning up pollution or fixing damaged ecosystems.
That's kind of like playing God, isn't it?
Yeah.
Engineering life to solve our problems. But what about, unintended consequences? Messing with nature can really backfire.
Exactly. We have to be super careful and consider the ethical implications. But this also takes us to another interesting prediction, expanding our idea of moral consideration.
Okay, I'm curious, what does that even mean? Are we just talking about being nicer to each other?
It's bigger than that. Our sources suggest that as we learn more about consciousness, we might actually start giving moral rights to animals and even advanced AI systems.
Whoa, hold on. You mean like whales having legal protections like humans, or robots that are self-aware having rights and responsibilities?
Exactly. It's recognizing that the ability to feel and experience sentience, that should be the basis for moral value, not just what species something is.
That's a pretty big change in how we see things. It makes you rethink our place in the world and our relationship with all kinds of life.
It could lead to some big changes in industries like agriculture and tech. Like we might see lab-grown meat and synthetic food become the norm, driven by our obligation to respect sentient life.
So it's not just about, like, saving the planet anymore. It's about acknowledging the moral worth of all beings. That's pretty profound. But speaking of the planet, we can't forget about that whole energy crisis thing looming over us.
Yeah, you're right. Climate change is a serious wake-up call. We gotta ditch fossil fuels and really embrace renewable energy. Our sources describe cities powered entirely by renewables, buildings with solar panels, wind turbines feeding into a shared grid.
So it's like this vision of energy independence where communities can be self-sufficient and resilient.
Precisely. And it goes beyond cities, too. People could become energy prosumers,
Mhm.
generating their own power and even selling the extra back to the grid.
It's a decentralized approach to energy. giving power back to the people, literally. But with all this talk about big changes, what about something as basic as education? Will we still be sitting in classrooms 100 years from now?
That's a great question. That traditional model of education with its focus on degrees and institutions might become a thing of the past.
So no more stressing about exams and grades. Sign me up.
Our sources imagine a world where education is personalized and skills-based. Think about gaining knowledge and skills through online platforms and getting micro-credentials.
So instead of a degree, you'd have like a portfolio of skills tailored to what you're interested in and what you want to do. It's way more flexible, especially with the world changing so fast.
Exactly. And picture this. Virtual classrooms connecting students from all over the world, working together in real time. It's global interconnectedness. Knowledge going beyond borders.
Wow, that's an inspiring image. Education going global and collaborative. It's exciting to think that tech can actually democratize access to knowledge, giving people the power to learn throughout their lives.
But there's one prediction that's probably the most mind-blowing of all. Maybe transcending our physical bodies completely through mind uploading.
Okay, now you've lost me. Mind uploading. Is that like some sci-fi brain transplant?
Think of it this way. What if we could upload our consciousness into a digital world, achieving a kind of digital immortality?
That's some serious stuff. So our minds would just exist as information, no bodies.
Mm.
What happens to our sense of self? Our emotions, memories, personality, do we still have those?
Those are some of the big questions we'd need to figure out. If we can exist without bodies, what does it even mean to be human? What happens to our values or relationships, how we understand life and death?
It's like stepping into a totally new dimension, where the rules of the physical world don't apply anymore. It's both thrilling and scary. But something tells me that's not even the craziest prediction we're going to cover. What else is in store for us? Okay, so we've covered merging with technology, designer babies, AI rights, psychedelic cafes. My brain is officially overloaded. Is there anything in our sources that could possibly top all that?
You think that's wild. We're just scratching the surface. What if I told you that we might actually achieve a collective consciousness one day? Like a global mind meld where everyone's connected.
Hold on, a collective consciousness.
Yeah.
You mean like a giant hive mind, where we all share thoughts and feelings? Isn't that a little, sci-fi dystopian?
It might sound like something out of a movie, but think about the potential. Imagine being able to experience the world through each other's eyes, truly understanding different perspectives. Empathy and compassion could reach levels we can't even imagine now. It could even potentially put an end to conflict as we know it.
It's a fascinating concept, but I can't shake this uneasy feeling. What happens to individual identity in a collective consciousness?
Yeah.
Do we all just become one giant blob of thoughts and emotions?
That's the core question, isn't it? It really challenges our whole idea of the self. Would we still have free will? Would our individual desires and goals even matter anymore? These are some profound questions we'd have to grapple with.
It's like choosing between ultimate connection and losing a part of yourself. A huge moral dilemma for the future. But okay, let's say mind uploading does become a thing, and some people choose to, like, transcend their physical forms. What about those who decide to stay in the physical world? Would they be left behind?
That's where transhumanism comes into play. It's about using tech to enhance our physical and mental abilities, pushing the limits of what it means to be human.
So we're talking gene editing, advanced prosthetics, cybernetic implants, basically, becoming superhumans.
Exactly. Imagine wiping out genetic diseases, overcoming physical limitations, even dramatically increasing lifespan. It's about reaching our full potential, both physically and mentally.
It sounds pretty tempting. But wouldn't that create a whole new set of inequalities? What about those who can't afford these enhancements? We could end up with a society divided between the enhanced and the unenhanced.
You're right, that's a major concern. And it raises another question. What does it even mean to be human in a world where we're always modifying our bodies and minds? At what point do we cross the line and become something else entirely?
It's pretty mind-boggling to think about. But let's switch gears for a second. With all this talk about super advanced tech, it seems like the future could be incredibly efficient and automated. What happens to work and the economy in a world where robots can do almost everything?
Some experts predict a future of radical abundance. A world where our basic needs are met without effort and there are plenty of resources for everyone. Imagine no poverty, no hunger, no need to work just to survive.
That sounds like paradise. But wouldn't everyone be unemployed? What would people do with all their free time? Wouldn't that lead to boredom, apathy, maybe even social unrest?
It's a valid concern. We'd have to rethink our values and find new sources of meaning and purpose. Maybe we'd see a surge in creativity, artistic expression, more community involvement, or even exploring consciousness itself.
It's a future where personal growth and self-discovery become the most important things. But with all these amazing possibilities, there have to be some downsides too. What about, like, the dark side of all this tech advancement?
You're right, we can't ignore the potential risks. One big concern is the rise of AI. As AI systems get smarter, they could actually surpass human intelligence. And that could have some unintended consequences.
So we're talking about the classic robot takeover scenario.
hmm
I've seen enough movies to know that doesn't usually end well.
It's a valid concern, but it's not just about robots taking over. It's about the potential for job losses, algorithmic bias, and the ethical dilemmas of creating machines that can think for themselves.
And what about those social credit systems I keep hearing about? The ones that, like, track and judge your behavior. That sounds a little bit like Big Brother, doesn't it?
Yeah, these systems are already being used in some parts of the world. They collect data and use algorithms to determine how trustworthy and socially responsible you are, which could affect your access to resources, opportunities, even social interactions.
That sounds like a recipe for social control and manipulation.
Yeah.
How do we make sure this technology is used ethically and doesn't infringe on our basic freedoms?
That's the big question, isn't it? As we venture into this unknown territory, it's so important to have open and honest conversations about the potential benefits and risks of these technologies. We need ethical guidelines, transparency, and accountability in how they're developed and used.
It's definitely a lot to process, but it's also pretty exciting to think about all the possibilities the future holds. Who knows what kind of world we'll create?
The future isn't something that just happens to us. It's something we actively shape through our choices and actions. By understanding how human values might change, we can have informed and thoughtful discussions about the kind of future we want for ourselves and for generations to come.
So as we wrap up this deep dive into the future of human values, we'll leave you with one final thought. What values do you think are essential for a thriving and equitable future? What choices can we make today to ensure that all this amazing technology actually benefits all of humanity? The future is in our hands, and it's up to us to shape it wisely.